you know, it's got levitate and it is an electric type. Electric type is kind of sitting in a decent place right now with very melt tall, as well as dodging earthquake and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's in a decent place. It makes sense on a raid team too, so you can hit Groudon and Hydro Pump.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, and you can also use a Z move on it and avoid that shaky accuracy of Hydro Pump, and it doesn't really take any damage from Groudon.
I do think that the Zerndon core that Kolten has is pretty solid, especially with something past Feeny, Lucas, Cinnamore. As well as, Salamence, always a strong mega.
Yeah, the Salamence really pairs up well against the Rayquaza, and he has quite a few tools to dispense of a Geomancy boost, so I'll be interested to see how he deals with the opposing Xerneas and trying to get his own setup without hazing his own boosts.
This is probably going to come down to the Xerneas. You can get their setup faster. Rayquaza, I don't really see
I think Rayquaza is mainly helpful in this matchup for its ability and ability to extreme speed, maybe like a 10% Xerneas. And then we're seeing the speed stats here. Yeah, it still could be just timid, but it is likely that it is a Choice Scarf, and that Salamence has to deal with that, maybe protect Icy Wind type of play. At the same time, Rotom Wash could Electro Web. That might be a move that would carry and would be able to mitigate that Icy Wind. So I'm very interested to see what they're going to do, and it looks like that might be the play.
And there's that Electro Web like set. Gonna lower the speed on top of the sound. It's gonna protect the wave.
Yeah, and this is where the game gets really interesting because all of these speed drops, the Pokemon that are getting hit by them are going to be a lot slower than everything that comes in later. So you'll have all of these speed droppers and the speed dropped Pokemon interacting, and that's my favorite part of Pokemon is having 6 Icy Winds done on a Suicune, and then it's the slowest thing, and it's not even outspeeding Stakataka.
Calvin does have to watch out. Salamence has the KO potential here. Time to put you down. Really easy to lose a double edge. Assuming it is the Scar variant. If it wasn't the Scar variant, Sash got broken by Ice Wind. That's insane. Time Feeny is within range of a Psyshock, though, or a Thunderbolt from Kolten.
Yeah, So we're not seeing any switches here, which is interesting, because Calvin's play here might not be to necessarily knock out this the Salamence, but it might be just to get the Salamence in range, where setting up Xerneas is easier. This knockout will allow him to switch it in for free here, and if he Electro Webs, then that Salamence is going to be...
You actually see the Will-O-Wisps going into Salamence, so that's going to cut that attack stat in half. Do a little bit of residual as Light Screen goes up for Kolten's side. And yeah, I think, just like you said, Caitlin, Xerneas might come in and be really safe to start setting up.
Yeah, and this is actually really interesting. Calvin didn't Electric Move into that Tapu Fini, and that keeps it from activating any Super Citrus parry. So, okay, we see Rayquaza here.
Rayquaza does come in.
So
now that Salamence is burned, I guess you don't have to worry too much about damage coming out from it. Hyper Voice is still going to do a pretty good number, but like if this is an Assault Vest Rayquaza, you're going to shrug that off, no problem. Just have to watch out for Icy Wind, really.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see whether or not Calvin did bring Xerneas, because he already revealed 2 non-restricted in Rayquaza. I don't see a reason not to, but I'm curious why he's bringing Rayquaza here. I wonder if there's something hidden that he has that is going to help him out. Maybe like a Draco Meteor and then a Thunderbolt or Electrium Z into that Tapu Fini would help out here.
You're going to see the Mega Rayquaza come out here and bring with it that juicy looking Delta Stream. I know you folks at home love this thing.
It looks just like a bunch of like dust just flying across the stream. Okay.
Tailwind goes up for Kolten, setting himself up for whatever's in the back. As Dragon Ascent, strong option. Probably going to take out that Tapu Fini, I guess.
since dropping your defenses isn't great, but at least guaranteeing the KO there. And then having your Rotom be able to do something, maybe like a Volt Switch.
Yeah, a Volt Switch here could be good. Another Electro Web would put this Salamence back down to neutral, which it looks like that's what he's doing.
Well, actually, I think it's still just -1 because it didn't get hit by the first one. So.
Right.
It is below half now because of the burn, so just slightly above actually. We do see Rayquaza has Life Orb as well, so not really the bulky set variant, just trying to get some good offense going.
Yeah, okay, so this is interesting. So, what do you think is going to happen here? I feel like this Geomancy is relatively, I don't want to say free, but relatively risk-free.
Yeah, by the looks of it, Xerneas is in a decent position to either set up or go on the offense. You've got 3 more turns of Tailwind, and Silence may be burned, but it might still be able to put some damage out through Hyper Voice, as we do see that come out here. Rotom is looking pretty good as a Salamence resist here, but if Xerneas chooses to attack with Dazzling Gleam, could be a knockout on Rayquaza, and that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, so I'm curious if this Rotom itself has anything that it could stop Xerneas with. I wonder if it's really Trick maybe. But I don't. Yeah, just Electro Web is going to come out, and under Tailwind, that's not going to be as impactful as it would be without that.
The Salamence still here, sitting at what would be its neutral speed without the Tailwind, so still faster than pretty much everything on Calvin's team, bar the Tapu Lele. We do see Xerneas as his last, so maybe he's going to try and force the setup war happening here. But Kolten's under Tailwind, so can always get up that Geomancy first.
And Kolten does have another Pokemon on the back, so there definitely could be a Primal Groudon on the back, and that would definitely give Xerneas a bit of issue just coming in. So I'm curious to see, one, how much this Salamence can do before it gets knocked out, and I'm also curious to see what that last Pokemon is, because that is definitely going to swing the momentum for the rest of the game.
Okay, we see Geomancy going off from Kolten's side, and that's great for him. He gets the early defensive advantage of the special defense as well as the early speed advantage, and he will still have the speed advantage going forward as long as he has the Tailwind still around. But Geomancy on Calvin's side, I think all he needs to do is to get out of Tailwind and then maybe hope for a couple of lucky rolls or good plays to clutch this one out.
Yeah, so now that Kolten already has this Xerneas at only +1 because of that Electro Web, the Rotom could use Electro Web again and put it back to effectively neutral under Tailwind, which is essentially +2 speed stat. Salamence Avoid, that's not really impactful here.
And just a little bit more damage on something that's pretty much already not doing a whole lot, so...
Yeah, it might be beneficial to leave it there burned, not having much of a damage output. But now these Xerneas are effectively the same speed stat level, so we get to find out who's winning the potential speed tie or who's faster naturally here on this turn.
Definitely true, but I don't think Calvin really wants to, if he's willing to take that risk, he can definitely do so, but I think you can just wait out the last turn of Tailwind here and then guarantee yourself the speed advantage the following turn. This does mean that if your Rotom isn't carrying Protect, though, you kind of leave it open to getting hit, so maybe not the greatest idea, but it's certainly something to think about.
Yeah, because if Rotom doesn't have Protect, then Kolten can just Dazzling Gleam, and your next turn going to be taking a full power Moonblast. So if he doesn't protect this turn, that could be helpful to reduce that overall damage to that Xerneas over time.
Okay, we do see Calvin's move first, so his is either faster or is winning the speed tie there. Doesn't really do a whole lot, so maybe Kolten's running a bulkier variant of Xerneas. Dazzling Gleam is going to take out the Rotom. Rotom stuck around pretty much the whole battle, but didn't really do a whole lot of damage. Just mostly utility, and the utility hasn't really helped out as much as I think Calvin would have liked.
Oh, there was also Light Screen up.
Oh, okay, that's true. Okay.
Yeah, the speed drops didn't seem as impactful due to the Tailwind, and it just didn't feel like that Rotom had enough time to get those speed stats low enough to have an impact, where Rayquaza would have done more damage with Dragon Ascent into perhaps the Xerneas.
So I think we're just have to move into Game 2. Calvin might have to think about, positioning a little better. Maybe stop Tailwind from going up. Make better use of his speed control.
There's still potentially a chance with Calvin using Dazzling Gleam here. There is definitely still an out, but it's obviously not very likely.
Yeah.
And then if Kolten just has something like Incineroar or Groudon in the back, it's essentially all but done. So, assuming this game is wrapped up for Kolten, then what do we want to see Calvin do differently in Game 2 that might lead him to win?
I think in this game, especially, he kind of just let his Tapu Lele take the double edge damage and get knocked out. I'm not sure if that's really something he's willing to risk. Of course, he didn't really have any switch-ins for it. That's probably why he decided, letting my Lele go down is the best I can do here at this moment. But maybe a little better anticipation of the Icy Wind on turn 1, and not really... Like, he didn't walk into Protect on turn 1, but he also didn't really capitalize on it as well as he could have. So I think there are better ways to approach the beginning of the game, but I think during most of the game, he was handling it mostly okay. Does get the special attack drop, which won't save him from the next Moonblast.
Yeah, and the Precipice Blade goes off, so that should be it.
Yeah. Does reveal that the Groudon on Kolten's side is going to be a little faster than the Xerneas at neutral speed. So that might be information Calvin can use to maybe assess the bulkiness of Kolten's Xerneas in the next game.
Yeah, and it would also potentially, if that Lele was at -1 perhaps, it might be able to get a Psyshock off or Psychic before that Xerneas moved and boosted.
And that was game 1, Kolten taking it pretty solidly.
Yeah.
Didn't really show a whole lot of support, just brought Tapu Fini and then, Mega to restricts. And the Mega did a lot of work despite getting burned in that turn 2, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it felt like he wasn't pressured to get it off the field, and Calvin wasn't pressuring it too much, so he would just sort of left it there and allowed it to Tailwind and Hyper Voice, and sometimes that can just be the difference of just leaving another Mon on the field and having more switch-ins, and you're not advancing that slot's damage at all. So, I'm definitely curious here. I would like to see maybe bringing the Rotom, but not bringing the Lele, bringing something else. I think Amoonguss definitely has a chance to be impactful here. If there's no Salamence brought.
well, I think Salamence is definitely going to be coming. And I think both players kind of are respecting the opposing player's Dragon and not bringing the Amoonguss, since if neither of them are really prepared to handle the flying type moves that they're getting thrown at it, it's not really worth bringing the Amoonguss when you could bring something a little more sturdy, like the Incineroar or the Tapu Fini. Because, Amoonguss is a good Pokemon, but with all these strong flying types, and Groudon as well as a fire type, and Incineroar too, to an extent, you have a lot of trouble kind of not getting hit by super effective attacks, which is why Sash has become really popular nowadays. But if they're not bringing them, then they might even reveal that, well, maybe they're not Sash, or maybe they're just not really prepared to handle all this kind of damage.
And they could also be lacking Clear Smog, which would be a big thing that you would want to bring into this matchup. Kolten probably wouldn't want to bring it because he has his own Tapu Fini, and Calvin's also feeling that Tapu Fini pressure, so he'd have to bring Lele to make it use of Spore, and that could just negatively impact his decision to bring Amoonguss. So he might be bringing Incineroar here. I would like to see this Rotom again, but I would also like to see just what they decide to do.
Okay, we see Amoonguss Xerneas, so maybe Kolten is about to take advantage of this Tapu Lele getting brought and maybe start putting stuff to sleep on his own. This is really not bad for Kolten. Does have to watch out for a Psyshock from the Tapu Lele, but again, if the Amoonguss is running like a Focus Sash or maybe Pyapa Berry is also popular, then you can take a hit for sure and then maybe put something to sleep. You do risk having Xerneas get targeted, like doubled up on, so maybe Sporing isn't super great, but I feel like if you can guarantee that you survive the turn with Amoonguss, Sporing right here will get you a lot of momentum.
I feel like Calvin is so pressured to target into this Amoonguss that Spore is not... He has to respect that and attack into it, and it looks like here he's bringing in his own Amoonguss, so they're disrespecting the dragons at this point.
Yeah.
And
We noticed that Calvin actually showed that he has Amoonguss as well, so maybe there's that Focus Sash, as we said. But bringing in Amoonguss here, great kind of foresight, knowing that Xerneas will set up and that Amoonguss might as well stay on the field since you're bringing it to a Lele fight. Probably has a way of surviving at least one hit or two. So this puts Calvin in a pretty good position with the Amoonguss. And the next turn he can have that Spore or Clear Smog available to him and not be affected by Rage Powder.
So, what do you think is going on in their heads in this turn? Because Kolten has a 1 HP Amoonguss and a Xerneas that we've seen is pretty bulky and slow, so its Dazzling Gleam might not pick up that KO on Lele. So, if he dazzles and doesn't knock out the Lele and then gets Spored or Clear Smog by that Amoonguss, that's obviously very bad. But at the same time, his Amoonguss can't do much and is at threat of anything.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of plays that players like to take advantage of the situation if you are on Calvin's point of view. One is to double up into the Amoonguss with a Spore and something else to catch a switch, potentially. And we'll see if he does that, but that's one play that you can do to take advantage of the situation. Other than that, you can just do the Psyshock and Spore Clear Smog into Xerneas and hope it works out that way, but you do risk hitting it to protect.
Yeah, and it looks like we have this Groudon coming in. So Kolten obviously not wanting to give up his Amoonguss and maybe using Regenerator to get back a third of its HP, keep it a little bit healthy for later. And then
okay, we do see the Protect from Zern. So let's see what Calvin does. This is pretty much his turn to make the best of it. Psyshock into Groudon. Gonna get a little bit of damage, not super great, as Clear Smog does go into that Xerneas.
Okay, so this is really interesting. So Kolten should be able to clear this Amoonguss this turn. And Tapu Lele, assuming it doesn't have an ability to switch to Psychic or have a Z move, that Groudon should be staying on the field through the end of the turn. So it looks like Kolten will be able to clear the Amoonguss and do a good chunk of damage to Lele. So I'm curious how Calvin's going to react to that.
Yeah, Calvin might need to hope for a Press Blades miss at this point. Or, you know, hope his Lele makes it through surviving this turn if Groudon chooses to do single target damage instead. But essentially, you're going to have to hope Amoonguss survives and do something, or give up a lot of momentum. We see the Moonblast from Xerneas, actually, so that's probably going to take out Tapu Lele for sure. Yep.
Yep, there it goes.
Bye. Did a lot of work this time, did more damage than expected as Eruption comes out. And so this reveals the Groudon is actually mixed here. Eruption does so much damage, but there's that all-important Focus Sash. And I do expect something's going to sleep, or maybe getting rid of those boosts. I'm going to see those boosts go away now.
But yeah, this is still a Xerneas. This Xerneas is still a restricted Pokemon, so it's not as though it's off the field yet. And Calvin still has his Xerneas in the back, so this is sort of a pivotal turn here to see whether or not he brings out his Xerneas, which he does, and what he can do to stop this Groudon from doing too much damage to it.
Yeah, Groudon here is definitely kind of putting a damper on that Xerneas' day. You know, you can definitely get Amoonguss out into whatever's in the back. Hopefully it's Rayquaza. But you can't switch it out and keep your Amoonguss. You risk getting Moonblast on the switch. So I think Calvin is just going to have to give up his Amoonguss this turn and try to get up Geomancy as fast as possible to start returning damage to Kolten.
Yeah, and it's also... Okay, so Kolten's taking out his Xerneas, bringing in the Tapu Fini. This is signaling to me that this Tapu Fini has Haze, perhaps. Even if it's just Icy Wind, that would still be good here. Turning off the ability to Spore is very impactful and allows Kolten to go for Precipice Blades without worrying about the miss.
Alright, so Geomancy is going to go off here. Calvin is risking getting hit by like an Eruption or a Precipice Blades, but if Groudon chooses to go for a single target move, fully protected, that Rage Powder redirects that attack for sure. But we'll see how much damage the Xerneas weathers this turn and see if a comeback is in order for Calvin.
And it's also good to note here that Misty Terrain's now on the field instead of Psychic Terrain. So if Calvin brought that Incineroar, he can use this next turn to fake out the Tapu Fini and prevent the Haze, and then take the next turn to knock it out.
That's definitely true. At -1 Precipice Blades from this kind of Groudon probably won't knock out your Incineroar. It's going to be that Rayquaza though, which is great. Also, you can turn off the sun here, as well as, you know, kind of wall out Groudon, barring any hidden power ice shenanigans, or like Dragon Claw or something. And this does make it safer to double down into the Tapu Fini and prevent any sort of the Haze, Icy Wind stuff. And Kolten doesn't really have good switch-ins for that either. He has a very weak Amoonguss in the back, as well as, you know, a Xerneas, but you definitely don't want your Xerneas to be taking that damage either.
No, and he doesn't have any priority moves that would be able to take advantage of this Rayquaza's weakened defenses after a Dragon Ascent. So I'm curious how the rest of his team will work, all being slower than this Rayquaza.
All right, Dazzling Gleam going to come out, get a little bit more damage on Groudon, as well as chunk that Tapu Fini for the Dragon Ascent. All right, so
This
Dragon
should knock
Ascent
out.
it's pretty strong. It is a Tapu Fini, so
And it is Life Orb boosted.
that's true. So Tapu Fini, Pokemon, but can't really take doubles from two of the strongest Pokemon in the format.
Maybe there's a reason it was called the Diet Kyogre of its time.
Preston's Blade's coming out here. He's going to connect with Xerneas, maybe hoping for that critical hit to end the Xerneas. It's not going to cut it here, so it kind of looks like Kolten, maybe didn't quite respect Amoonguss enough there. And Calvin kind of, allowed a couple of opportunities for Kolten to do something with the Amoonguss, but he just aggressively said, I don't want that Xerneas to have boosts.
Yeah.
And, well, he got his wish.
Yeah, so... Yeah, now all Calvin needs to do is, I think, spread move with Dazzling Gleam and Dragon Ascent the thing with more HP for the rest of the game, and I think that should be it. So...
And no more Intimidate on Kolten's side either. He didn't actually bring the Salamence or Incineroar, so Intimidate, such a strong ability. You see a lot coming around, and, Rayquaza having one of the highest attack in the game, and you can boost it further with an item, on top of a 120 base power stab. You should definitely be accounting for that if you're building a team. It's just that in this battle, Kolten decided, well, didn't really do anything in game one, so I'm not going to respect it.
Oh, so this is interesting. So, no, the speed stats won't work out correctly. If the Rayquaza was faster, he could redirect the Dragon Ascent into Amoonguss this next turn. But I think Kolten is banking on the Dazzling Gleam not KOing the Amoonguss, and then him getting off a Dazzling Gleam to KO both.
Yeah, it's definitely an out. We'll see how he's trained his Amoonguss, but, Focus Sash Amoonguss, I don't know how much bulk they put in, but with a Focus Sash, sometimes it's better to go fast rather than to invest anything,
So there's 64 hit points left on that Amoonguss. It just needs one left after this Dazzling Gleam for Kolten to be able to sneak out the game here with the Dazzling Gleam that KOs both Pokemon. So we'll see if that's possible, but I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah, I'm going to say that with that HP number, it's looking a little low. Another thing that could happen is that you could Extreme Speed with Rayquaza. He didn't do it, but you could Extreme Speed with Rayquaza and go for the Moonblast into the Xerneas. It's going to be a Moonblast, actually, from Calvin's Xerneas. Doesn't want to risk the Dazzling Gleam, but perhaps this might bite him if the Dragon Ascent doesn't KO.
Yeah, this Dragon Ascent is Life Orb boosted, and this Xerneas is almost near full, but this is a bulky Xerneas, so there is a chance it can live it.
Yeah, we do see it lives pretty comfortably there with a lot of health, as the Dazzling Gleam probably going to come out and take the game away. I think...
It should.
Oh! So, even though it's a really bulky Xerneas, it maybe doesn't have that much attacking investment. So that really bit Kolten there. And it worked out for Calvin in the end. Maybe he already knew. We were just not really thinking that hard about it. We aren't the ones playing the game after all. So
Yeah, I didn't invest 100, 200 defense EVs into Xerneas. I think Kolten might have. But, so this is interesting. So we saw Kolten not bring any Intimidate this game and not pressure the attack drops under Rayquaza. I'm sort of hoping that he does that, and I'm sort of hoping he does it in the form of Incineroar.
Yeah.
I think Finny and Amoonguss are both good, but I would personally feel like leaving Amoonguss behind this game might be just as fair, and bringing Incineroar on top of Finny. Get that Icy Wind pressure down, and then have Fake Out pressure so you can sort of stall out your opponent's Geomancy for a turn and set your own up, and have that extra turn of just doing whatever you want.
Yeah, I think Amoonguss, both players adjusted and brought Amoonguss to game 2, but neither player was able to really get off a Spore or too much of anything with all the damage flying around. I feel like if Kolten had Spore turn 1 in the last game, he actually could have been in a better position after setting up. But chose not to. Chose to go for the safe Rage Powder. And if you want to play safe like that, I think Incineroar is definitely your bet there to try and, slow the game down, play at your own pace, have that U-turn from momentum and all that good stuff that comes with the U-turn as well.
Yeah, I do also want to point out that Calvin did get that clear smog off, and that was actually probably what won him the game.
That's
just
true.
removing those boosts, and he might be incentivized to bring that Amoonguss again because it worked for him. So it's Colton's prerogative here to figure out what needs to change and how can I deal with that Amoonguss and Lele. So I hope he brings Intimidate here to deal with that Rayquaza and take down its damage output by 30%. That's really good as an ability.
Alright, gonna see. Then moving into game 3.
Okay, so let's see what they send out. So Finny Salamence, so Colton's going back to what he led the first game.
And we're gonna see Xerneas, Tapu Lele again from Calvin. This is actually a pretty fantastic lead for Calvin. You have the immediate speed advantage granted by the Choice Scarf on Tapu Lele, as well as the ability to set up if you're Xerneas. Just have to watch out for if Tapu Fini is carrying Haze. We still don't know. We know it has Icy Wind, but if it does have Haze, maybe Kolten goes ahead and uses it and stops the setup of a Geomancy. But that doesn't really solve the Scarf issue from Tapu Lele the following turn. So either way, Salamence is not going to have a fun time if it decides to stay in a Protect.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. There's a lot that can happen here. This Tapu Fini could have Haze or it could be bluffing. The way he played it last game makes me think it has Haze. But also this Tapu Lele could have Taunt and taunt the Haze. It is Scarf, so it might not be the best choice for Calvin to be running Taunt on it.
I wouldn't put it past him.
But that could be another level of thought here for Calvin. Is just taunt the Finny, assume the Salamence is switching out to Groudon, and boost, and then next turn start attacking.
Have a lot of momentum and move forward. All right, we do see the taunt. So calling it perfectly there. You see Scarf Pokemon and you think, well, they probably don't have status moves, right? And then they go ahead and reveal it, and you're like, oh, well, now I'm kind of not sitting pretty in front of this boosted Xerneas. Because even though Groudon does resist, we saw how much damage it did with Press's Blades in Game 2.
Around
It really
40.
wasn't too much, especially if Calvin is not super bulky like Colton's. So, mixed Groudon probably doesn't have too much attack investment. And there's the Haze getting stopped by Taunt. Now, Calvin does have to pull out his Tapu Lele, but he got off that Taunt and got off the Geomancy, so now he's sitting really nice, really pretty for doing some good damage.
So now, too, Calvin gets the damage as Groudon pretty freely if it doesn't protect, which I can't imagine it won't at this point. His Salamence is already in the back, so if that switches into anything, it's going to get knocked out. Tapu Fini might just take this turn to Icy Wind and drop the speed a little bit to set up the Xerneas in the back for better setup later, but I think Calvin's in a really commanding position here. And the Lele's going away.
Of course. It is going to be that Rayquaza coming in. It's going to have to take an Icy Wind for its troubles if Tapu Fini doesn't go down. But, it's not going to get knocked out, and it's going to be, stopping Sun, being immune to Press's Blades, all that good jazz. As Dazzling Gleam does about exactly 2-hit KO on the Tapu Fini.
Yeah.
Press's Blades is going to connect here, though, so let's see the damage. Yep, about the 40%. You see it? Icy Wind does connect with both as well, so Colton's got to have to claw his way back out of this one, but I think he's starting to maybe set up his Zern in the back, and if he can do that, he can also take away the game. So it's still not over, but Calvin's got a lot of the momentum riding in his favor right now.
Yeah, I think all Calvin needs to do this turn is Moonblast the Tapu Fini to make sure that Dazzling Gleam was in a roll, and then he can just use whatever coverage move he has on Rayquaza, like Water Pulse or Earth Power, into that Groudon slot, and I think it should be relatively safe for him to just keep moving it forward. The Rayquaza's not going to be able to do much to this, or the Groudon's not going to be able to do much to this Rayquaza, because we've already seen 2 of its moves, and...
unless the last move is like Dragon Claw or Dragon Pulse, which is already pretty rare in the American scene, we do see just Protect, so that does pretty much reveal that I don't think it has any options here. As Moonblast goes into that Tapu Fini, like you said, clear it out, make sure it doesn't get another Icy Wind off. That way, you can have your Rayquaza set up to go, and you can keep your fast, speedy Xerneas. And there's Earth Power as well.
And we also do need to note that this Rayquaza could be slower than this Groudon now. So if this Groudon does have something tricky, like an HP Ice or something, it could potentially knock out this Rayquaza before it gets a chance to move. and I'm not sure if that would be enough, but it would certainly be a step in the right direction towards taking this game for Kolten.
Now we do have to wonder though, since Kolten Xerneas is a lot slower and bulkier, that maybe even the -1 speed Rayquaza might overtake it. So Kolten really needs to know his speed numbers here to kind of safely make a decision this turn. I think it probably could take a Moonblast at this range because of the bulk, but you'd be heavily damaged and be in extreme speed range. So gonna have to play this really carefully this turn. Already protected with Groudon, so you're really strapped on resources if you're Kolten.
There could be a turn here where he switches into Salamence for the Groudon to predict the Earth Power and have an immunity, and then the Xerneas sets up with Geomancy as it takes a Moonblast, and depending on how well it takes it, he might be in a good position and would potentially be able to use the Salamence to set up a Tailwind.
Alright, so there's that Salamence coming in for Groudon. It is going to get that all-important Intimidate drop, but here's the extreme speed. Not even going to let the Groudon, not even going to respect the Groudon really. Just says, yeah, I'm just going to do damage now. Cover the switch with Dazzling Gleam. It does so much damage. But that Xerneas does live with a fair amount of health left, I think. He's actually just going to fire back with a Dazzling Gleam of its own. I'm not really sure if that was the right move, seeing as I think it actually has enough to take another extreme speed from that range.
I feel like that using Dazzling Gleam there was somewhat of concession.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Kolten now has enough damage output or bulk on the rest of his team, because he only has that Groudon at like 50% and this Xerneas.
And here comes that Tapu Lele, you know. Did not Geomancing that turn really kind of puts a damper on Kolten. Like you said, he's kind of like conceding at this point.
Yeah, this
because
Lele,
now you don't have speed advantage at all, and you know Tapu Lele can walk all over you.
Yeah, all Galvin needs to do is click Dazzling Gleam and Psychic into the Groudon slot, and this game is all but sealed up. Its Precious Blade probably isn't going to be able to KO the Tapu Lele if it sticks around, and it would be close on Xerneas. It would need a crit, and Eruption can't do much because it's already so weak.
Alright, here's that Psy Shock for more damage onto the Groudon. Saw how much it did in Game 2, and you know, I don't even think it can take this one, to be honest. So, that's going to be a good set. Calvin kind of losing Game 1, but adjusting well enough and playing a little more aggressively in his plays for Game 2 and 3 to steal the win.
Yeah, I feel like he predicted that Kolten would go back to his Game 1 leads and played around that well enough. So we'll be back for finals in a bit. Stay tuned.